So, the posh title is Child and Adolescent Psychiatrist, but what I do on a day-to-day basis is work with young people with emotional problems, depression, anxiety, things which interfere with their life. The reason why I did this in the first place was that, although I was interested in mental health, I felt that working with young people, there was more opportunity and there was more hope that you could actually do something to change the course of their lives. And in relation to the current pandemic, it's interesting because no one really knew what was going to happen when it started, and there were lots of thoughts about how it was going to impact upon normal ways of living. But clearly, those of us working in mental health were worried about what the impact would be on everybody. Lack of social opportunities, lack of being with the people that you wanted to be with. It wasn't clear what was going to happen, and I think now, 12 weeks on, it's clearer that there's a range of impacts that it has had upon people. So with the people that I work with the children and the young people I work with, there seems to be two paths for them to go down. There were some children who were so anxious before this happened about leaving home, about going to school, about having to interact with other people. And what the COVID lockdown has meant for them is that they no longer have to do that. So young people with problems around school attendance and levels of anxiety associated with that, suddenly they don't have to worry anymore, and some of them are really thriving by being at home all the time. But the flip side of that is children and teenagers where their worst nightmares are suddenly coming real. They feel threatened by the world in general, and now they're told that there's something to be scared of, and so their anxiety just goes through the roof. And also the lack of structure, the lack of going to school, the lack of being grounded in normal everyday life has meant that for some of them, they've really struggled with coping with depression and also with anxiety. So the prison, when we locked down, the boys' lives changed completely. They went from having an education regime, which meant that they were out of their cells for 6 hours a day, to being locked up for 23 hours out of every day. They're allowed out for 20 minutes to socialise in a small group, and they're allowed out for 20 minutes to exercise. Although in reality, most of them don't exercise, they just walk around talking to each other, because it's the lack of communication and the lack of contact with other people that really gets to them. So we were expecting a spike in suicidal thinking. That has happened, and in the adult prisons there have been increased numbers of suicides. We've been lucky in the young people's estate in that there hasn't been any suicide, touch wood, so far, but we are working closely with a group of young people who are expressing suicidal thoughts. And then there are some boys who just contact us saying they just want to have some contact with someone, they want to talk to someone, because that's what they're missing. They're missing contact with their families, they haven't seen their families face to face, although they do talk on the telephone. Well, it looked as if people were going to be really affected by COVID and were going to change how they went about life, but who knows whether that really is going to happen. People forget very quickly about what happens, and I'm sure people will go back to the ways that they were before. Maybe some things will change, maybe we will be kinder and more gentle on each other, but maybe we'll go back to prioritising what we want on a day-by-day basis, rather than thinking about other people.